Hello and welcome to Sage and Stone Homestead. If you have not met me yet, my name is Heather and this area looks pretty bare right now, but spring is here. I'm pretty sure we have had our last frost a couple weeks early. Fingers crossed that that is true, because this is where I'm going to be growing a lot of our frost tender things. We are working on this space. I've grown a little bit in years past. This space we call the lane, and it's been a work in progress for a few years. I've grown in ground out here. Our soil is just a lot of clay, and while clay is not impossible to work in, I don't prefer growing in ground. I prefer gardening up in raised beds, and so that's what we've been working on, is getting the beds built, getting them put out here, and getting them filled. Some of these need a little bit more soil added to them. There's a total of 10 beds out here, and I am getting ready to plant. I'm actually thinking about taking the risk and planting some seeds out here a couple weeks early. Our long range forecast looks pretty good. We've got lows in the 50s, but really not below that, which is kind of crazy. I mean, things can turn on a dime, but I think the risk for me is worth it, because if we get a couple weeks head start, that's pretty cool. And I do have the extra seeds. My husband actually did find 2 extra sheep and goat panels that he stuck out here. So there's a total of 4 panels as far as trellising goes out here right now. And each of these is 16 feet long. So that's quite a bit. And then I just have a little bit more trellising to go. What I have in these beds right now is a lot of hay and barn clean outs. Unlike straw, hay has a lot of nutrition in it, so it's able to give that back to the garden. We've actually layered these with hay on the bottom, a bagged garden soil in the middle, and then the barn clean out on top. And I think later today my husband is coming out and he's gonna put like the soil that I'm going to plant in over top, and then we'll be ready. Down here are the grow bags that I'm going to be putting our potatoes in. I actually just got those in the mail and they are starting to chit, so we'll be planting those really soon. This green stalk is new to this area and it has all strawberries in it. I put these in a couple of weeks ago and we're starting to see a lot of foliage. I think the kids' garden has a couple of blooms with their strawberries, but I don't see any blooms out here right now. By the way, if you've been watching our vlogs, you've seen us put out these little dragonflies to try to keep wasps away. I find that wasps love to put their little nests inside the crevices between the cups, and it is not great. And I can tell you right now, these little dragonflies are not lasting very long. I don't know what's happening, but their wings are snapping off. So yeah, maybe not the best idea, but we tried. All right, let me go ahead and shut the fans off and then we can talk about what's going on in here. There we go. I guess we can start on this side since we're over here at this point. I have paid a little bit more attention to my herb green stalk than I have in the past. Not a whole bunch of attention has been spent, but I've been watering a lot more and I have been taking out some of the more dead and dying things. There's a lot of thyme here that has started to bloom, and this has been lovely. The chamomile is growing back quite well. It's getting really big, actually. Chamomile gets a lot bigger. It doesn't necessarily get huge when it's put in a smaller space like this, but we will get flowers and that'll be a beautiful crown up here. My favorite part about this green stalk, I think, is the fact that the spearmint is spilling out over the sides. I know that mint can be rather invasive, but I'm choosing to be okay with it, because I like mint. We've got several different plants in the mint family around the different areas of our homestead. Actually, thyme is in the mint family, and so is, you know, herbs like oregano. And while I do find that in some spots they can kind of like take over, it takes several years and it really hasn't been the worst thing, but I do recommend that you try to contain it the best you can. So all right, in here I am growing mostly frost tolerant things, so things that can handle the cold. This space gives us a little bit of a head start on the spring season, and it also can extend us further into the fall season. But our weather can be really unpredictable, lots of ups and downs, and this just helps kind of cushion that for the plants that are in here. It will absolutely freeze in here. This is not a heated greenhouse, and so that's why I like to grow the frost tolerant things. Right here I have lots and lots of broccoli, and I will say I don't know that we're going to be getting just the biggest harvest of broccoli. We can see this little baby head in here, and while broccoli heads do get bigger, they start small and they get bigger obviously, this particular head is kind of loosely packed. It's not really dense. I feel like this little thing is trying to flower. Same thing here. It's not really densely packed. I don't think that this plant is really signaled to put on a nice head. I think it's gonna flower. Now these are the Green Magic hybrid broccolis, and I've grown quite a lot of great broccoli heads from this variety in the past. But I do find that the heads on this variety are much, much bigger going into the fall, less so coming into the springtime. And that makes sense. Even with hybrid varieties that are kind of bred to handle the heat a little bit better, the heat still does signal different parts of the plant to do different things. That center head that we eat out of broccoli is the flower stalk, and that flower stalk is triggered to bloom and create seed due to the heat. So there is a measure of delaying that with these hybrid varieties, but it is inevitable, and it has been pretty darn hot here for springtime. Somehow these plants are a little bit bigger than what I have here. I need to make sure that my irrigation is working properly, because I am noticing that we have some quite tiny ones that are the same age as some that are a little bit more established and bigger. And sometimes it's not necessarily a watering issue. Sometimes there can be like a root rot or a root nematode or like a compacted root system. It could be a root issue as far as these puny little plants go. But yeah, this guy has a kind of loosely formed head in here too. I'm just gonna have to see what happens here. If we don't happen to get heads out of this broccoli, at least not very big heads, it's not a total loss. I will be re-amending this space in order to put the fall broccoli in, which actually will go in the greenhouse here in summer so that I can harvest it by about Thanksgiving time. But broccoli greens are also edible. So we've got plenty of lovely green foliage here, which the cabbage looper, the cabbage moth, does not seem to be out quite yet this season, which I'm grateful for. So we'll be able to harvest these beautiful leaves, freeze dry them. And those freeze-dried greens really do add a lot to our cooking throughout the year. And a lovely broccoli flavor, though we really do hope for some heads. I don't know if we're gonna get them. This bed I planted some carrots in, and I have come through and done quite a bit of thinning. I want about 1 carrot every inch to 2 inches. That's gonna help us get the biggest roots possible. But you can see we've got our true leaves coming on. These things here are the little seedling leaves, and then right there, that's called a true leaf as far as carrots go. And this bed looks great. I think this is a rainbow mix that I bought, so that'll be exciting. I have a couple garlic plants that I guess the garlic got left in from last year, and these look really great. In the past, when I have grown garlic in the greenhouse, I've had like marginal success. So a lot of garlic varieties need a certain amount of chill hours before they're going to produce well. Some garlic varieties, like elephant garlic, that's what I can grow the best on my homestead so far. It's the best that's grown well for me. That doesn't really need a lot of chill hours. Actually, a lot of times I'll keep it in my house or my shed and I'll use it, and as it starts to sprout in spring, usually around February, I'll stick it out in the garden and it grows really well. I get nice big garlic bulbs, and so there's very minimal chill hours with that. Some varieties in a covered area will also experience fewer chill hours, so it really kind of depends. I'm trying to remember what variety this is. If I can, I'll put it in the words down below. It does look like we're going to have a better harvest this year. And what I mean by better harvest, I mean that's 2 garlic bulbs, but I mean they look like they're going to be sizable. The garlic that I got out of this bed last year was really puny. On this side of that same bed, I have shallots that we started from seed. I think it was August or September last year, and we've got a lot of leaves. Now, if you know anything about alliums or onions, the number of leaves you get equals the number of layers that you get in your onion. Now I have these densely planted, they're planted in groups, so we're going to have a little bit of a tighter grouping and a little bit smaller of an onion, but they should be beautiful. I'm seeing lots of leaves, which means lots of beautiful layers, and I haven't seen any kind of bulbing right now, but that'll be coming. Gorgeous. So obviously those onions will not be climbing the trellis, but on this side of the archway I do have some peas planted. These are the Wando shelling peas. They've come up really well. Knock on wood. Well, that's not wood. Knock on wood. The birds have really been staying out of the greenhouse. I did move these little balls. I get questions about these balls all the time. I bought these online, and I think I think the listing called them terror eyeballs. And this is what our local greenhouse, like the Amish greenhouse, this is what they use to keep birds out of their greenhouse. And I've got several, I've got 4 different ones here. I have noticed that if you don't move them around, it's like the birds get used to them and it doesn't scare the birds anymore. They kind of understand that it's not something that's going to come get them. But if it moves around, that confuses them a little bit. And I think that this is helping the birds stay out of the greenhouse. At a certain point, the birds won't bother my seedlings, but peas happen to be their favorite, and these are the perfect size for the pickin'. Another thing that I find works really well to keep birds away from seedlings are these little plastic snakes. And I've got a bunch of them here. And this works really well if you don't have the space to hang these kind of things. These are inexpensive and they do the job well. You do also want to move these around about once a week. These peas over here are a little bit bigger. These are actually snow peas. So I'm going to move this to where I've got some smaller peas. I'll move this guy too. Some of these seedlings are a little bit smaller. They didn't get bird damage, they got bug damage. You can see right here, some of these probably won't come back, but these ones look like they're trying to come back. That's roly-poly damage. No I don't. But if I had some bird damage to show you, I would show you the difference between bug damage versus bird damage. But birds will often uproot a plant, but also their damage on leaves is a lot more jagged. You can almost see their sharp, pointy beaks and the damage that they leave in the leaves that they have left behind. And in my experience, the roly-poly damage is just, it's a lot smaller. It's a lot more like precise and particular. There's really not a lot left. While birds are messy, bugs kind of aren't. They just sort of chew down a plant versus leave it shredded. So I'll just leave that guy right there. Yeah, this guy right here, these are the same variety, the Wando shelling pea. This here is a 10-foot stretch of the shelling peas, and that's an 8-foot stretch. So a total of 18 foot of that variety. And then on this side, I have 10 feet of Lincoln shelling peas. These guys are a little bit smaller. They were planted around the same time, but as you can see, I do have this stack of clean out from what was growing on the trellis last year. These are actually tomato plants. This is shading them out a little bit, and that is making them grow a little bit slower than the peas that I have on this side. These peas here get a lot of afternoon sun, but not so much morning sun. You can really tell the difference in size. So back to this bed, you probably can't see it as I'm standing here, but if we crouch down to the soil, you can see that I do have things growing in here. I had a seed tape, a beetroot seed tape that I put down, and I think I probably need to even thin this out a little bit more. Ideally, I would like to grow these beets for the roots. You can grow beets for the greens, but I would like to get bigger roots, so I think I need my plant space a little bit further apart than what the seed tape had as like a standard. Just gonna pick out the ones that are a little bit too close together, but they're coming in. I believe there's 3 rows of beets here and then the peas in this bed. I have 2 container peach trees in the greenhouse. They've really started to put on their foliage. The flowers don't last very long, but they were beautiful. And the little flowers turn into little baby peaches. That is what's coming on right there. There's a whole bunch of them. I do not know if you're going to be able to tell, but there's a ton of them on the end of this little branch, and I can't allow all of these to form, but I won't be pulling off the little baby peaches quite yet. I'm going to see what develops, and I will be pulling off peaches a little bit later. I try to keep it to about 1 peach every 5 inches of branch, and that seems to be okay for these little trees. I did recently fertilize, so whatever peaches they put on, they should be able to support pretty well. This here is the other peach tree. Last year we had a couple heavier branches, and a big gust of wind came through and snapped some of those branches off, so they look a little puny right now, but they'll fill out again. At the base of the peach trees, I did plant some alyssum, and that is starting to come up. This here is not alyssum, but these are. This little thing here, this is a tomato, which that's what all these little orange bits are. This is just tomato that fell from the tomatoes that I was growing in the greenhouse last year. But this alyssum is a beautiful little ground cover that has gorgeous flowers, and that's going to help mulch this pot for summertime. Something that I noticed coming out of this bed are little mushrooms. I don't remember putting any kind of mushroom compost in here. That looks like a field mushroom. I say this on my channel because I know a lot of people watch with their children. Do not eat any wild mushrooms that you find outside. Don't. Those of you that are experienced enough to know what you're looking at, you know I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to people that do not know. It's not safe to eat any mushroom that you find in your garden if you are not 100% sure at what you're looking at. And even then, be 200% sure. I'm actually very interested in looking this up and seeing if my guess is correct. You can learn a lot by looking at the underside of the mushroom, looking at the gills, looking at how the stem is connected to the ground, looking at the caps. But this is for research purposes only. I'm not going to be eating these. I'm studying them though. Whenever you see mushrooms coming up in your beds, try not to worry about it. Even if they are poisonous, there's nothing about the mycelium, there's nothing really about touching them that's going to hurt you. Most mushrooms that you find in the garden are not necessarily toxic, but they're not something you're going to want to eat anyway. I see a lot of what's called the inky caps, and these mushrooms are actually a really good sign when you see them coming up in the garden. The top of the mushroom that we see coming out of the ground is literally like the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole network of mycelium in the soil beneath that is helping break down the soil and create an environment where the nutrients that are in that soil are becoming more bioavailable to the plants. They kind of act almost as like a pre-digester for the nutrients for your plants, and it really is a nice symbiotic relationship. So don't worry about mushrooms if you see them. They're doing good work. Okay, this is the view that we normally see from entering the north side of the greenhouse, and I obviously still have some work to do. I've been so focused on getting the lane ready to plant that I've sort of ignored some of these spaces, but that's okay. This is more shelling peas on this side, and that there is a volunteer that I am going to take out. That was a Malabar spinach volunteer, and the reason I pulled it is I do have Malabar spinach that I have seen come up in the greenhouse, and I transplanted into this spot because this trellis is where I like to grow the Malabar spinach. It's just a beautiful focal point coming into the greenhouse. There's one little plant there, and then I have another one on this side, and they take a little bit of time to get going, but once they get going, they grow really fast, and it's a gorgeous heat-loving green. That is one of the things about trying to grow in hot places and having a love of leafy greens is there's not a lot of leafy greens that you can grow into the summer that also taste good going into the summer. Collards are really good. I actually haven't grown them in several years. Chard can be really good, but that tastes a little bit better going into the winter, even though summer doesn't harm the plant. But Malabar spinach retains a really lovely sweetness that cooks down really well, and it's actually very good chilled. The leaves are almost succulent. They've got a lot of moisture in them, and when you put them in the fridge and then you take them out later to like use as a lettuce wrap for like chicken salad or something, it's very good and very refreshing. Over here I have more carrots. Some of these larger carrots are leftovers from the carrots that I planted at fall time, and I actually am kind of wondering how big these roots are getting. The roots that I planted, or that I harvested out of what I planted in fall time, there was a lot lacking there. I grew mostly greens and not very many roots. And it looks like this carrot is actually splitting. I may leave that for now. I haven't added anything to this bed, but I may need to add some sand. People have told me that carrots like to grow in a more sandy soil. But right now we're getting some splitting, and that's probably from me keeping a lot of water on this bed just so the seeds that I have would germinate well and the little tiny roots of these baby carrots wouldn't dry out. There's a bunch of little carrots in here. And really these carrots are the ones that I'm more interested in growing to their full maturity because there's a lot more of them. You see there's tomatoes, there are Malabar spinach, there's a little mushroom right here. This is one of the more common types that I see. Very little, kind of like fairy little mushroom looking thing. And I also think I am seeing volunteers of cucamelons. I think that's what this is right here. And I may let some of these get a little bit bigger and move them a little bit later. Kind of treating this area almost as a seed starting space. So I'll let that one grow. And then see, there's one right here. I'm pretty sure that is also a cucamelon. That is a bunch of tomatoes. I am going to yank these. I don't necessarily want tomatoes right here. Back behind these peas, I transplanted out my bok choy. And they had a little bit of a shock, but they're starting to grow back really well. That's what all this is. And then at this point on, I have what I did get germinated out of my broccoli rabe. These are going to get a lot bigger. And I didn't get as much germination as I really liked, but I have 4 broccoli rabe plants, and that will get us some food. Happy to see that they transplanted well. I've made 2 harvests out of this bed, really 3 if you count the cabbage. This cabbage that I had on the end was from fall time, and I did harvest it the other day. I left the plant in here. I could probably take it out, but it was kind of acting as a trap crop for aphids, which, you know, there's some here. Oh man, look at all the roly-polies down there too. So this is just sort of a magnet, and I'm gonna let it be that to hopefully keep these kinds of bugs away from the plants that I really want to harvest from. The kale, what I've been doing is treating this as a cut and come again crop. The new leaves are growing out of the middle, and I've been harvesting the leaves from the outside edge and just letting it keep growing, and I will keep harvesting. You can really get a good image of that here. You can see where I've snapped off the leaves, and then there's brand new leaves growing out the middle. My favorite time of year for cut and come again harvesting is this time of year. When you're growing from spring into the summer, your days are getting longer, your days are getting warmer, and that is a really good environment for plants to just keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. When I take things like kale into the winter and I do the cut and come again, it's almost like those plants don't handle that as well. They're getting a little less light every day, they're getting a little bit more chilled, they're almost trying to go into dormancy, and I get a lot less out of those plants. So if I'm growing kale into the fall, I like to grow it big and then harvest the whole plant, but I can get more kale overall out of the cut and come again growing method, which works better this time of year. You can see that I do have some random onions growing out of some of these beds. That's what I grew in all of these more square beds last year. There's a big onion over here, and I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit. Because I grew the onions from first year starts last year, these are technically second year onions. They are the same plant. An onion is a biennial, and they like to put on their seeds in their second year. And we can kind of see that happening with this onion plant here. We've got the leaves, and same thing with, you know, normal onions as with shallots. The more leaves the better, because you get a bigger onion at the bottom as long as they're placed correctly. These guys are a little bit close together. Whoops. But what we see here is not a leaf. This is a flower stalk, and this is very, very common to see with second year onions. I don't really know what kind of onion that is. It could be a yellow, it could be a white. I don't think it's a red onion. And I think that all the onions that I grew last year were hybrid onions. You can save seed from hybrid plants. You're going to get something out of it. The risk with saving seed from hybrid plants is that material, that genetic material, is not stabilized, and so it's hard to say that the onion that we get out of saving these seeds is going to be any good. It could take on any kind of qualities from the parent plant, and it could be good or it could be bad. So I might risk it and just see what happens. I do think I'm going to leave it. The bees really do like onion flowers. This bed, I did have some cauliflower and some cabbages. Actually, I think maybe this whole bed was the purple of Sicily cauliflower. I have, looks like 2 of those plants left. This one here, and then this one here. Those are the only 2 plants that I have left. That particular variety was really sensitive to me just throwing it out in the greenhouse and hoping for the best. I didn't really acclimate the seedlings super well to the cold, and we got a decent cold dip right after I transplanted, and most of the cauliflower did not handle it well. The broccoli did fine, and my cabbages did fine. That's what I have here, and then I have 5 cabbages over here. The cabbages that didn't make it out of this bed actually were taken out by roly-polies. But yeah, down here is where I did have mostly cauliflower, and I have taken them out and decided that that's where I would put my calendula starts. So that's what we've got going on here. There's 5 calendula plants, and I did also transplant some more chamomile. So that's what these 3 plants are here, and there's chamomile there. This one is actually volunteer chamomile. That volunteered over winter time, and we should see buds and flowers coming off of that one soon. And then there's more chamomile over here. just taking up space. So I told you guys I grew onions in a lot of these larger beds on either side of the greenhouse last year. I only have 2 onion beds this year. This is one of them. These are the yellow candy onions, which is a hybrid variety. I think I bought the seeds from Haas. I have grown onions from seed before, but this is my first time growing a lot of onions from seed. I don't really know how many plants are in here, but I did transplant these little seedlings over. They got a little bit of, you know, transplant shock, a little bit of damage on them, but they'll bounce back. Actually, today is my watering day. And then over here, this is another bed of the same type of onion that I actually transplanted a couple weeks earlier than that last bed. So we've got a lot of leaves coming on. We can see this cute little onion already has 4 leaves. And I believe our goal is 12 leaves, if I remember right. 12 to 13 leaves is like the perfect onion. And I think at this point is the perfect time for me to fertilize this bed. And so these guys could use their first round of nitrogen fertilizer. Remember, with onions, leaves equals rings. Speaking of elephant garlic, I'm pretty sure that's what this is. We'll see later on. I've got a couple grow bags down here that I will be reclaiming for the lane soon. I'm going to be growing sweet potatoes as well, and I'm going to try those in bags. But I have grown a couple of beets from fall time. These seeds went in like a long time ago, but it looks like I'm actually getting root development, which makes me happy. I'm not great at growing beets, you guys, but there's a little bit in there. And I have noticed that the spinach that I have next door looks like it might be trying to flower. It used to be a lot more compact, but things are starting to kind of branch out and get a little bit long. You can see this kind of stem happening here. I think it's going to try to flower. A lot of times when plants switch gears from producing leaves and storing energy into producing seed, they get a little bit bitter. It's not bitter yet. It's actually quite sweet. So I might pull those plants now, saute that down, get one meal out of it, and then reclaim that bag. I speak to a lot of people who have a little bit of analysis paralysis when it comes to starting and growing a garden. And Epic has come up with something that takes the guesswork out of it and gives your brain a little bit of a break. So let's open it. So as far as their garden in a box, there's a couple different experience levels that you can choose from. This is the Buzz and Bloom Experience Level 1 that will attract pollinators as well as grow lovely food. So you get some seeds, some plant tags, so you don't lose track of what you planted. And then there's actually 3 different grow bags in here. And honestly, this has been one of my favorite ways to grow things. It's very easy to just pop these open, fill them with soil, and get growing without having to do a lot of even thinking about where you're going to set this up. If you don't like where you have put your garden, it's really easy to grab these handles and just move it around. So this particular kit comes with 1 of the 15-gallon grow bags, which is what you see me growing in all around here, and then 2 of the 5-gallon grow bags. Look at that. Isn't that cute? And these ones are actually the lined grow bags that are really helpful for me here because we have a very windy situation here most of the time, and this helps the bags retain moisture. So there's a really nice depth to this bag, which I like. Got 2 of this 5-gallon, 1 of the 15-gallon, and then plenty of seeds to start a little garden. So I've got everything to grow, all of the things, as well as the knowledge about how to grow it. We've got this pamphlet here that guides us through every step of the process. Literally, look, 1, 2, 3, step by step. So not only has Epic taken the guesswork out of gardening with these grow boxes and allowed you a little bit of a handhold to get through maybe your first season, but they're doing so at a really, really good price. The price is already low. I think right now the garden boxes are roughly $45 for all of this. But if you're part of their greenhouse club, you get an automatic discount on every order, and then you can also stack our coupon code on top of that for an even deeper discount. So it really doesn't cost a lot to get growing. I'll leave the link and information on not only this garden box, but the other options that they have down below. Something that I don't think we talked about last time are some of the fruit trees and bushes that I have on my homestead. These are Nanking cherry bushes, and I've got 2 of them. There's one there and there's one here. They bloomed about the same time as the peaches, and I have had these for about, I think this is the 3rd season that I've had them. And the little cherries that they get are really close to the stem, and they start out green. And I don't know if the little cherries themselves have survived the freezes and things that we've gotten, but I think it's a little bit early to tell. The blooms literally just dried up. You can see the remnants here, that brown. These are where the flowers were, and then in theory we've got little cherries that will be forming. I've heard they are nice and tart. I haven't gotten any yet. Here's a peek at the kids' garden. Really not a lot happening out here right now. They want to grow a lot of frost tender things, and so they've amended the beds for the most part, and we've just been waiting. We'll be planting this soon. The strawberries are doing well. This is where I saw a flower, but the strawberries that are in this bed are establishing well. We have this here because of cats, and then their strawberry green stalk is also establishing well. Yeah, there's a flower. All right, and we come around here, and this is where I have my seeds started for the frost tender things that take a little bit of time to get established. These are all the slicer tomatoes that I'm going to grow. We have some Belgian Giants here and some Dr. Witchy's yellow over on this side. In this little cell tray, I have some Oxheart tomatoes. This is the variety that my kids wanted to grow this year. And then here are my peppers. They're still kind of small. Right now we've got some Edgevarskis and some pimentos, and then I'll put the variety down below, but this is one that a viewer had told me that I should grow, so I bought the seeds and I started those as well. It might be just a little late to start peppers from seed, but if I grow them in the greenhouse, I think I can still get a pretty good harvest. All right, here's my messy perennial garden. There's really not a whole ton happening right here. I actually had to put a few more things in this bed. This is where my livestock guardian dog Buster really likes to lay, and while it's adorable, he was starting to kind of dig up my maypops. These are my passion flower plants right here, and I noticed that he was actually digging down to where he was literally digging up quite the root system, and I didn't want him doing that, so I've blocked him out of this space. I know, did I block your space? I'm sorry. I want the plants to grow, okay? So far I haven't seen those coming back. I do have a lot of weeding to do in here, and as you can tell, these beds are falling apart. We are going to be replacing at least this side of this U-shaped bed this year. It's not going to be a U-shape anymore. I'm going to put this bed where that one arm is that's really falling down. Ooh, that breeze is coming out. Hopefully my wind muff is handling the wind noise okay. But these are our thornless blackberries. I love having thornless blackberries. We can see we've got a little bit of green happening, and so this will look so different in no time. Actually just threw down a whole bunch of berry tone fertilizer. I just grabbed it by the handfuls and just threw it in there. It's kind of a wild patch, but I love it. We've even got some new growth coming out here. You know what? This is not a blackberry. Do you know what this is? Comment below if you know what that is. I am gonna pull it because I don't necessarily want that there. I guess, spoiler alert, there's my elderberry plant, one of my big ones right there. It has kind of moved on to here. So I guess maybe the roots have gone all the way out this way. I don't know, I kind of think that that came from seed. This is elderberry. I recently took all the weeds out of this green stalk, and I need to figure out what I'm planting in here. I'm actually thinking I want to make this a basil tower. I've grown a lot of things in this green stalk before. One of my favorite things was I grew Tommy Toe tomatoes. They did amazing in this space, and I don't have any seeds left. I looked for them. I could order them and they would do just fine. That particular variety of tomato only gets about like 12 inches tall. There's a ton of tomatoes on them, and they put on those fruits really, really fast. I have a longer season here. We have about a 200-day growing season, so I could get away with it. I could probably get away with that and some basil later on. Maybe I could do kind of alternating tomatoes and basil. I probably will. Now that I said it, I think I know that's what I want to do. So I've got to get the seeds ordered. It's not too late for that, and I might just directly plant the seed out here. But that green stalk is all cleaned out and ready to go. There are garlic plants down here. This is elephant garlic, and then this is a garlic variety that I got at the grocery store. This variety is doing less well, but the elephant garlic always does well for me, so I'm glad that we have it. It actually took me a long time to find elephant garlic that I could plant. The first year that I got elephant garlic was about 4 years ago. I found 2 elephant garlic bulbs at a Mennonite store locally, and so I planted them. And I knew that I really wasn't going to be harvesting to eat that year. I was harvesting just to get more, essentially seed garlic. What's funny is this little spot right here is where I grew the first round of elephant garlic, and every year elephant garlic comes back in this space. It's actually pretty darn incredible the way that it grows. And we'll get into this later when I get a good harvest out of the elephant garlic. But when you pull it up, you've got your garlic bulbs. But at the bottom of this particular variety, there's like little mini cloves called corms that very readily fall off and kind of stay behind in the soil. And that's how you can keep getting the garlic coming back year after year. So I really love it for that. So back here, I'm sure you saw it in the background, I do have asparagus growing. I've got a couple different varieties. There's green variety, and then there's this beautiful purple variety. I'm actually surprised that these aren't mushy. We got a frost last night. I guess it was 2 nights ago. It did frost, but these beds probably retained enough heat to kind of radiate upward and prevent these from freezing, which was good. I mean, we just barely touched at 32. And asparagus spears themselves are not frost tolerant, but these guys did all right, which I'm grateful for. All of this is asparagus here. There's a little bit of asparagus here. You can see a couple plants right here. And then the rest is kind of nothing for now. I have ordered some new asparagus crowns, and so I think what I'm going to do is clean this out and just fill this out with more asparagus. So this whole back series of beds here is asparagus, or will be asparagus. Also, super cool development out of these middle beds. Looky here, the grapes are reviving. These are the Carlos Muscadine grape. This will be their 3rd season as well. The grapes are pretty much filling out the trellis as much as they can, and so we're just in production mode right now, which is really awesome. It's great to see the little green sprouts coming back. These beds, I did put down a little bit of granular fertilizer at the base of my grapes, but I also top dressed with a lot of barn clean out. So this is a lot of hay, this is a lot of rabbit manure. And so that will also feed the beds quite well. This is actually Kelway Golden Chamomile. I had started a lot of that in this bed a couple of years ago, and we may see some volunteers of that coming back over here, but it's funny how it sort of migrated. This probably happened due to seeds falling, but this gets really bushy and beautiful, and that's gonna be really nice to have right there. In the past, I have grown quite a few things at the base of my grapevines. I find that I can get away with that pretty well. Because these beds are pretty big, they're each 4 feet by 4 feet. And so if I leave the back half of the bed that the grape is in for the grape, whatever I plant in the front half doesn't really rob the nutrients from it, and that's pretty nice. But what I'm actually thinking about doing this year is planting either a watermelon, like maybe a bush style watermelon, or a pumpkin on either side of each grape plant. So like something here and then something right here, and just kind of letting them sprawl and ramble and not necessarily like take over the grapes. I'll be pruning them so they don't grow up the trellis, but to sort of act like a living mulch where the big leaves on that pumpkin or on that melon will shade out the soil and help retain moisture for the grapes. I think it could be a nice relationship. So the root system will be over here, but then we'll allow the vines to ramble that way. That's kind of my vision. I also really need your help with this space. So this is another couple of 4 foot by 4 foot beds. So in total, this space is 8 feet by 4 feet. This I need to reclaim. And this is my perennial garden. I don't really want to be trying to manage too many annual things in this space. As the years progress, I like to put a new perennial thing in the garden every year, at least until it's all filled up. And so what can I put here? I've got the asparagus, I've got grapes, I've got strawberries in other places. Blueberries I'm not really great at growing blueberries. Exhibit A, my blueberry bed. Some of them are trying to come back, but I'm just not good at it, you guys. So no blueberries up there, but what should I put there? I've ordered some raspberries, which I am gonna grow a little bit further away from the blackberries. I've heard that you should have some space in between them. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I'm gonna be putting the raspberries where we've got kind of an empty spot at the front of the yard. But yeah, what do you think? What could we put here? Nothing super tall, because then it would shade out what I've got behind it. This is more of the south side of the garden, while the asparagus that gets real big, that's in the back of the garden. But I want something to put here, something perennial. So give me some ideas. I also need ideas for back here. This is where I was going to grow either the calendula or the chamomile. But when my cauliflower didn't take off in the greenhouse, I decided to fill that space up with that. And now I don't have anything to plant here. This, I tried to grow roselle here last year. I still think it's a little bit late for me to try and start roselle in this space. It needs a really long season to produce. And so I don't think I have necessarily the time for that, but I need suggestions for here too. This is going to be my tea garden, or at least was supposed to be my tea garden. So this could be where some basil or something else goes. But what do you think for here? Something a little bit more fast growing. This particular bed is where I grow my Jerusalem artichoke or my sunchokes. This is where I established Jerusalem artichokes in here last year. I have done a lot of harvesting and I have done some amending, and we should be seeing the Jerusalem artichokes peeking up here soon, because I did leave 10 tubers in here, same as I planted last year. And so we should be seeing that soon. Hopefully we get flowers this year. I had planted the Jerusalem artichoke a little bit later in the season, last season, so these will definitely get a head start on last year's Jerusalem artichokes. I really want to see the flowers. You don't have to see the flowers in order to get the tubers. Actually, you probably should remove the flowers to get more tubers. I guess that's the theory, but I still want to see them. I've gotten some questions about these little trees that I have in the perennial garden. These are actually dwarf cherry trees. There's the Romeo and Juliet cherry. They did really well in the frost that we had the other night. A lot of times our frost settles down low and trees like this do just fine. And I'm really excited because this is the most bloom that I have seen on these little cherry trees since we put them in. They actually came together in one pot, and when we separated them, I think this one got a little bit more root damage than this one. This one really took off, and that one's been a little bit smaller, but that's okay. They need each other to pollinate from what I understand, and they have each other. From what I read online about these should get no taller than about 8 feet tall, which is why I have them planted a little bit closer together, and I have them in this spot. I feel like they're gonna be big enough to be a nice little focal point. It would be great for harvesting, but not so big that they're gonna shade out other things that I have planted. Like this back here, this is another couple of grapevines that I have. These are a Concord variety called Sunbelt, and they are also coming out of dormancy. These grapes are absolutely delicious, and they have also taken over their trellis quite well. I'm pretty sure we planted these at the same time that we planted the muscadine grapes. I bought these locally from an Amish nursery, and those I think I got from Stark Brothers. And then look, we've got more elderberry. So I'm guessing that this is just dropping from seed. I don't really want this here. Look at that root. It's like a taproot, huh? Anywho, that's the status of the garden right now. If you have any suggestions of what I can put in this perennial garden, I would love to hear it. Please put that down below. And also let me know, how often would you like to see the progress in the garden this growing season? In the past, I have done weekly garden visits. When the garden really gets going, I've done weekly garden tours. I think last year I did it every other week. So what would you like to see? Let me know. The lane is all filled now. It's time to plant.